All right. Oh, good. Oh, nice to see you. I was having an issue posting this, and it's nice to see some of you here already. And if for any reason there's a sound issue, please let me know. I have the chat open. This is Shannon Port, and we are here today for a really important Divine Feminine astrology update. And so we are going to be looking at the Mars, Uranus, and Algol conjunction that is happening in the sign Taurus, and it goes exact tomorrow on Monday, July 15th, 2024. This is considered to be one of the biggest events of the year because of the dynamic energy which we are already seeing play out on our planet in many ways, which we will be talking about today. And so, this is a Divine Feminine astrology. It's an astrology update we're doing today. If you're new to the channel, I've been doing lectures the past several videos, and those lectures are on the Divine Feminine archetypal wisdom, which is infused into everything we do here involving astrology. And that's why we call it Divine Feminine astrology, because this astrology is truly a synthesis of some of the highest alchemical symbolism, which I will mention again in just a moment. So our current lecture series is called the Esoteric Feminine Codes. We started with Mars, which is very important to understand for the energy we're speaking of today. We did a 3.5-hour lecture called Mars and the Mother Mary Mysteries on all of the really deeply esoteric archetypal coding and energy for the planet Mars. And we approach it in that lecture from the Divine Feminine and from the Mother Mary as an archetype, a great, great archetype in alchemy. The second one, we did the Magdalene Mysteries, where we focused really deeply on Venus, as well as the 8th house, which is also key for today. The 8th house being Scorpio, what we call the Resurrection Mysteries, or the 8th house mysteries in astrology. That's what we call it in Divine Feminine astrology. And then the last lecture we did was called the Venus Mysteries, and we did Solar Venus, and we went into some of the deep, deep mysticism around the planet Venus and many of her rays of truth that are expressed through alchemy, and the various esoteric and metaphysical platforms. So that's on this channel under the Feminine Esoteric Codes. Today, I'll just tell you quickly before we dive in what we're doing with the astrology aspect. So I have had many people, so good to see you. I've had many people, it's been inconsistent, my astrology updates in the past couple years for a reason. And I found a way to weave it all back together now because everything is kind of coming together to create the greater platform for this work. And so we're doing a live stream today for the Uranus-Mars conjunction, which has got a lot going on. But I'll be uploading every couple weeks astrology videos that will be shorter than the lectures, very digestible. And this is why, if you're interested in any kind of esotericism, any kind of archetypal wisdom, astrology, alchemy, you should be watching Divine Feminine astrology updates. And the reason is because this astrology is the synthesis of what is known as Hermeticism, Gnosticism, alchemy, Kabbalah, and even mystical Christianity. So the Christos mysteries. This is when we approach astrology, we're not looking from the exoteric, although we look at it from the exoteric, but because of the nature of the work done here, this work is built upon those platforms. It's not a dabbling. It's not just kind of reading about something and saying, oh, it looks like it's this. It's from an integration and synthesis of the various rays of alchemical knowledge that are really, really coming in at this time in our world. And so when we approach astrology, that's exactly what we're doing. We're looking on the very deepest level of this kind of symbolism. And as I said in this video I made on Instagram yesterday, it's truly meant to go inside you and speak to you and speak to your inner being. And all astrology is great for that. But this, because of its connection to the divine feminine and the mission of the feminine at this time on the planet, the feminine governs the subconscious realm and the inner plane. And so when we work this way, it's really a seeding and an igniting and a calling forth of what you know, the knowledge that you have within you. And it's meant to help you create that divine marriage of the inner and the outer worlds, as well as the marriage we call of spirit and matter, and the inner marriage of masculine and feminine. So that is the intention here. All of the astrology reports are done from that platform. And so even if you're not interested in it, these 10, 20-minute videos I'll be uploading will have the current codes for what is taking place. As we all know, things are very much accelerated. We're going into this now. And I just want to say again, the Goddess Report is birthed in and bathed in the divine feminine wisdom, period. All right. So right now, the big thing that's been happening for the past few years is that Uranus is transiting the sign Taurus. Taurus is a fixed earth sign, and it could not be more of an expression of our physical earth and our planet and our relationship to the physical world. And the goddess, Taurus being ruled by Venus, and her archetype is the Hierophant, but we also oftentimes associate the Empress because it's Venus archetype with Taurus. So all of the activity we've seen on this planet in the past several years is really being activated through this or this Uranus transit. Uranus is electrical energy. It's electricity. And so today, Uranus currently is at 26 degrees of Taurus, the very same sign that the star Algol is at. So Uranus is sitting right on top of, or it holding hands with the sign Algol. This is what we're going to talk about today. Algol is Lilith and Medusa, and I have a little bit of mythology around that I'll share with you. I have joked recently, without even considering that I'd be doing this podcast. My son, I was born right on top of Algol. And a huge part of the mission of this work has been the transmutation of Lilith. So, and as our next lecture will be on Lilith. And so I'm just being shown to shift now. So just one moment. And Lilith is in the sign Algol, falls in the constellation of Taurus. Lilith is Algol is also associated with Medusa, and I will get into some of that astrology in just a moment. So we also have Mars, which will be exact conjunct with Uranus tomorrow on July 15th. But this energy will be active in the world for much longer than just tomorrow. And so the reason I'm kind of amped up is because, for one, this transit is happening right on my sun, and also the events are already unfolding on this planet. If you've been watched the news, what's happening in the U.S., you'll know that there's really big things happening on the political platforms and in our culture, in the diversity of the humans on this planet. We also have the Capricorn full moon, the second Capricorn full moon coming this week. Why is that tied on into this energy? Capricorn rules the patriarchy. Capricorn is where we had that massive conjunction of Saturn and Pluto in 2020 before the next stage of our human evolution began. So Capricorn right now, we're having a second Capricorn full moon, and that's rare. It doesn't always happen like that. But this year in 2024, we have two full moons in Capricorn. The second one is this week. This is highlighting it's highlighting our institutions. It's highlighting the institutions that govern the planet, government, religion, and the leadership of the world, which is based on 3D. And so that's why we'll go back to that. Capricorn is ruled by Saturn. We'll return to look at the chart for the Capricorn full moon. So now let's take it back into this conjunction. This is what we need to understand about Uranus. Uranus is this electrical energy, but Uranus can also bring in the demonic. When Uranus and the nature of electricity goes into the planet, it shakes up the subterranean forces. Now, this could also be associated with what we call, we call it the dragon current. For our purposes in the rest of the video, I will refer to our sexual energy and the sexual current as the dragon current for purposes of the video, so it doesn't get, put into that category. We'll call it the dragon current. So Uranus stimulates, with this transit in Taurus, it's stimulating the lowest expression of that energy. And so what that means is that we all carry that deep Uranus energy, Uranian energy buried within us, and it's connected to our to that energy that our divine creator has put inside each and every being. Physically, we carry that electricity. It's what beats our heart. And Kabbalistically, Uranus is connected to the Hebrew letter Aleph. It's one of the three mother letters, and Aleph is connected to the heart. So Aleph being connected to Uranus also represents that fire that beats our heart. When the fire stops, we expire. But when the fire is beating our heart with the breath, the divine breath of Aleph, it's also air and the ruach and energy, the solar force, which is also known in Christos mysticism or Hermeticism as the Christ force. The solar force is the Christ. And so we work deeply with Christosophia, the feminine Christ energy, but also the Christ force is connected to Uranus. And so what we have happening right now in our world is that we are being hit with both an opportunity for the higher level of this Christic force, which you hear about the energies of the sun and the solar energy the activity of our physical sun is acting upon our planet right now in very heightened ways. That is this physical universe working upon the consciousness of humanity. And it's a strain because these higher energies of the sun coming in, if our vehicle is not capable of integration, they pound us. So, because it's got a kind of radiation. And if we aren't capable of integrating it, it really it hurts. It's like if you got, someone turned the lights on when you weren't ready for them and you were in a deep sleep or you had been, indulging in certain substances and you were like, oh my God, the light would hurt your eyes. And it's kind of the same thing. The light is going on, and if we can't cope with it or integrate it, it hurts our eyes and we want to turn away from it. Instead, we take comfort in the lower expression, which often leads to sabotage, addiction, destruction, even the kinds of revolutions that come sometimes even with what we call populism can even be taken over by the lower forms of this Uranus energy. We think of Uranus, you'll hear astrologers talk about Uranus as revolution, rising up, and this is true. But that we can rise up from a spiritual impulse or we can rise up from a carnal impulse, which is war and lust and being out of control in our own ability to balance. Everything is in alchemy is about balancing fire and water. So we have to, and that's truly what the heart is for. So I'm going to just say a couple things. Okay. And then we'll get into Lilith. There's so much. It's so juicy today. This won't be a super long lecture, but we're going to get into it because this goes exact tomorrow. We've already seen it. So this is in the election year in the United States. We have two candidates. There was a massive event yesterday with one of them. And I will say this. I've been really looking at this conjunction for a few weeks now, and even on my own predicting this, I have no idea what other astrologers have said. I haven't watched even one video. I Googled it and saw that there was quite a few out there. So I'm sure a lot of this has come up. But I knew based on the charts, I know for both of these candidates that they were right in literally in the line of fire. And they are and were and will be. So this is not over yet. This is going to carry on for the next couple months. And this is why it's really important for us to I have a list of advice how to balance, and I will get to that next. How to cope with this energy. I've been feeling it really deeply because it hits every angle in my chart. And so I've had some time to prepare to really pray and try to integrate everything because I'm being hit in every angle. So and so are these candidates. So here's the thing. Algol rules the head and head injuries, even beheading. And so injuries that are afflicted from an Algol transit are often to the head. And so just looking at some of the events that have happened in the past day in the US, every single person affected in this event, the subject, the bystander, and the suspect were all hit in the head. All three were head injuries. And I'm not going to go too deeply into it, but this happened through this conjunction, which is really interesting because it's really interesting. It just is. It's also, Mars is also blood. Mars represents war and bloodshed. And so having bloodshed and having escalation there's also I just opened the newspapers and saw a lot of big events have also happened in the global landscape around the wars that are taking place. It's everything is popping right now, everything. So there was something else that wants to come into that. Just one moment. Okay, so Algol is Lilith. It represents the head of Medusa, and we'll say some of the astrology. Now Lilith also can be demonic. We work with the positive aspect of Lilith as power, as the ability of the feminine to speak, and also as the positive creative power and the positive elemental power in the earth, allowing the elemental streams to be raised into the heart, into love, and run through. We see Lilith here. The codes we've been given are Lilith is really the heart, and she's rising into the heart right now, but her lower side, her demonic face, is activated with the Uranus energy, which also reaches in. And so just imagine this. You've got Lilith in the underworld, in the dark regions. They're really murky, dark, and also you think like the lowest forms of expression of the dragon force. That's Lilith in that expression. And now Uranus is hitting that hard. This energy is alive on the planet. So let's just bring Mars into it, which will be the Mars, Uranus, and Algol conjunction. So when you get Mars, Mars also has a connection to Scorpio. We talked about that in the Magdalene video deeply. It's the ancient ruler of Scorpio, which is about power and lust. So Mars is conjunct now. These two fire and air planet. Mars is fire. It can be good fire. It meaning it, we talked about in the Mother Mary mysteries, we talked about Shakti. We talked about the heightened Shakti of Mother Mary and the light body Shakti force that we work with here. But Mars can also be aggression, war. And I'm being shown right now, it's bringing in technology. So technology is also connected with Mars and deeply connected with Uranus. Uranus rules Aquarius, and Uranus, a couple correspondences want to come in, so I'm just going to say them. Uranus governs tech, it governs tech in the sign astrology, or in the sign Aquarius, but also Uranus on the tree of life as Hokama governs the zodiac. So just taking a step back, Uranus governs what we often refer to in divine feminine astrology as the fallen zodiac or the fallen body of the goddess. So Uranus is playing through this energy of the lower aspect of the zodiac through this correspondence. And it is the battle right now going forward is how we use technology. This is a huge theme here and has been for many years now. Because if we don't understand alchemy and the human soul, so much has been coming in around technology. If we atrophy those powers to have it easy, we will atrophy those powers. We're stepping into the simulation of technology. In alchemy, thinking even in Christian Hermeticism, the something that is gained, this is big, so make note of it. Something that is gained through the lower fire is not permanent. And it's not been won through spiritual effort. So when we get to this place where everything is being served up through tech, and we're so just in a trance around it, and it's there's a hypnotic trance and almost like a a hypnotization. We sort of move away from we see it happening in the world right now. We forget about human love. I was shown this morning as I was looking at all this that the human race is under the spell of the newfound power that's come through tech and having a very hard time integrating it. That's why political things are blowing up as never before. The capability of communication, which can overload us, is so big with technology. It's on a scale that mimics our spiritual power, meaning that the ability of the internet and tech and social media, we have that power actually within us as well. It's a psychic power. We have the psychic power and it's called, it's the power of the one point to be in touch with it's a feminine power, every other point in the entire ocean or akash of creation. That's the spiritual power of the feminine, the mother. But tech is making it so I can sit down now and through these wires and cables and all these codes and numbers, I can be in touch with anyone instantly. And so this is big. So there's these competing narratives and competing forces. So let me just see where we should go with that to keep it and to keep it alive within you. And it comes in some of the advice that's given. There's some bullet points. Use technology wisely, but make your spiritual practice everything. I know what's coming. Okay. Everything. Your soul energy is everything. And you can still be in the world 100%. You can still be active in whatever. but this is what you must do. I saw this random, this is so funny. I saw a priest talking about this because it on one of my Instagram accounts, it popped up. And because I was checking out the spiritual sites. And so this guy popped up on my wall and I clicked on it for some reason. And I thought this was great. And then after I watched it, I knew he gave a great example. The example he gave, it was this young guy. He was talking about our energy, and he was talking about how if you have a low cost membership to a gym, he was talking about a gym because all these guys are into working out now. He's saying if you belong to a gym member, if you have a gym, and I don't know his name, or I would say it, if you have a gym membership at a low cost gym, and he used one of the gyms, which I won't say here as an example, and it's only $10 a month, you'll join it and you'll give it some of your energy. Not a lot, because that's the whole thing. It gets you with a little energy. But 90% of the people who join those gyms never use them. Not only do they never use them, they never cancel their membership for years because in their mind they're only handing over a little bit of energy. It's $10, it's not 75 or 150. But when you go into that gym, it's almost always empty because barely any members use it. So if you do use it, you're kind of in luck. You have this gym that you get to yourself. And then he was describing that as in his terms, religious terms, it was the devil, or the darker forces tempts you with just give me a little bit of your attention. I don't need all of it, but just a little bit. And then you forget that that smaller amount of energy is valuable, and you start giving that amount of energy everywhere. Because it's not that you can give a little energy here and a little energy here because you don't feel addicted to this or addicted to that. But pretty soon you're giving a little bit of your energy to a lot of different things, and you're completely, and then I can't remember how he finished it, but it was so relatable to how we look at it here. We often talk about energy. He called it your energy account, and that's what it is. So my attention, which is our power to focus, which is a Mars power. It's also a Mercury power, but it's like boom. The masculine, the empowered masculine can focus and direct the light of the logos, of the Christ force. But when you these days it's about energy. When you're like, where is all my energy? And nothing seems very evil because it's just a little bit to celebrity culture, a little bit to social media, a little bit of scrolling mindlessly, a little bit of kind of forgetting to exercise or forgetting to, just make nice food or see the people you love because all these other things take up our time. That is the number one thing I would say. Get your energy account in order. Have your priorities through the next months and the next years on this earth. That's it. It doesn't mean you can't be creative and sometimes be intuitive. Be intuitive. Be intuitively focused. That's the marriage of masculine and feminine. The intuition of the mother with the power of focus of the male force. So the reason is that we have so many options these days and tech is taking over. And you just want to make sure that you look at what you love and then intuitively know when to turn it off because that energy is getting more and more smart with AI. It knows how to get deep inside your subconscious mind. And just the upgrades in the past couple months in AI, I've felt it. Like if you're attuned to it, you can feel it coming in. The algorithms, the walls, what you're being fed, how quick it attunes to you, even your thoughts is very real. So stay prayerful, don't react, give people space. Your space is number one. So don't worry about other people. Don't get too involved, even in the media and there's going to be rapid events happening. Watch and then know who you are. I've been really the past week more than ever before, and I always work with I am. But when I am becomes real for you, you will feel as merged with God. And it's a very real practice and it's so simple. But my inner being is popping it in right now really hardcore. It's almost showing me the next level of development to navigate these coming times, that there's no longer any distance. The second my sensors sense something, it's I am. And I say it internally, and then the whole expanse of my true being fills my fills my field, and I feel fills field, and I feel the power of the divine. This is for those who have ears to hear. This is what we do now. And if you have a deep relationship with I am, it's instant intuition. There's no gap any longer. It's instant, and you feel this joy and this love. And if you need to have a reaction and say, "Wow, this is really heating up," you can have that reaction, but it will make sure that you don't wander too far, because we can't give up the human side in the feminine wisdom. So let me just see. Okay, so let's talk about the candidates right now. I just want to say this. I've known this for a while because I used to look at their chart pretty intensely. There's two candidates running in this next election in the United States. So the one of them got hit yesterday at their event. That person has, oh, I wrote it down. I hope I brought this. I think I can remember it. Okay, I can remember it. That person has their Mars and their ascendant right in the line of fire in Leo. So I had been looking at it for a while, and I actually to myself was like, this could be an event. This could be a really big event on the planet. I'm looking at these things neutrally for the purposes of this video. So I also know that the current leader in the United States, I've known for quite a while, has a lot of Scorpio. So I hope I get this right, but I know they have their Sun, Venus, and Mercury at 21 degrees, 27 degrees, and 28 degrees of Scorpio. This person that is in power right now in the United States, our elected president, also has, this is so big, which I had forgotten, their North Node and is it their midheaven? I forget. There's two important points in Leo, conjunct the former president's rising sign in Mars. These two, and I saw it bigger than ever before, are arch nemesis of each other. There is no doubt about it looking at these charts. They are what activates each other in the most deeply personal way. And so there's that, but there's also this transit. This transit is on both of them. And so the current president, you've seen, this is taking it because it's astrology, we'll go into the realm of politics just a little bit. The current has been under the deep strain, and his Mercury has been getting hit. That's communication, speaking, thinking, of this transit of Uranus for a while. But now it's Uranus, Mars, and Algol. And they have planets a couple degrees into the very end of Scorpio, so they're not out of this direct hit for a while. And then there's the former, who is also under this with Mars in the rising sign. I believe it's Mars. It's one key planet, but it's definitely the ascendant. The ascendant. So this is just to look at astrology from the purely even the exoteric point of astrology, just to understand. And I know because I actually have the same ascendant as the former president in Leo. I think he's 29. I think mine's 28 and some change. And I also have a Neptune in Scorpio. So this is hitting my chart in all of those angles, and it's brutal. And I also have my sun and my moon on Algol and on this point. And my midheaven, which is your career, are all getting hit. So I was interested in it and see what's happening. It just allows you to see when you deeply, without being addicted or without, I have a very peaceful relationship with astrology. I used to be more connected to it when I was doing it a lot, but I got to this place where it's deeply intuitive. And so now it's check-ins and to know what's coming. But it helps you to understand. Let's take a moment and talk about astrology, what it is. Astrology is like, you hear this, checking the weather, but it's bigger than that. It's deeper. And it's why I believe my life was founded on it before even the rest came in. It teaches the archetypes of consciousness, and it teaches us the codes of symbolism and that language. And there's multiple levels. It's creative. It carries the feminine. When if you're a left brain or right brain person, I guess it doesn't even matter. You see some astrologers are more left brain, and they're more like specific outer details, the mathematical, and then there's some that are very intuitive and the flow just comes through. Both are necessary. But when you start to tune into those archetypes and understand what they really are, it's just a level of awakening. Now, do you have to? No. You can just, the male path is to just access the self. But make no mistake, we are in the time of, we call it the age of Venus because it's the age of the heart. We also call it the goddess epoch because it's the time of our creativity merging with our divinity. And that's what we can find in astrology. Truly, we can, I mean, when you learn to understand your different aspects with your partner, it can save a relationship. Even when you realize, oh, this person communicates this way, I communicate this way. His communication is water and moon. Mine is fire and in rapid fire. So it just helps us to understand each other. However, it is optional. I think that the schools, it's going to be more integrated in the coming years for sure. So the Capricorn full moon, also Mercury will be at 26 degrees of Leo. This is big, squaring the Mars Uranus-Algol conjunction. So at this Capricorn full moon this week, I believe it happens next Sunday. We're meeting on Sunday. It's 1 week from today. It's on the 21st at 3 a.m. Pacific time. I mean, the Mercury squaring this is very intense, and it could be a massive revelation. It could be a massive game changer in the political arena. It could be big. I'm just gonna look at one thing really quick. I'm gonna look at. I have to see this planet where it's at. There it is. Okay, I'm gonna see where his Leo. Okay, Pluto and Leo at 10. Mars. It's Mars. So the person who was in the event yesterday has Mars in Leo. His Mars is in a direct hit with this, with what's happening, direct. And the ascendant is just a couple degrees after that. It's still in a pretty close orb, 3-degree orb. This is astrology. And astrology is more visible when it's big things oftentimes. The subtle things can come and go. They can act out or not act out. Usually the big ones are pretty key for understanding. And that's why astrology has gotten so big right now. So, oh, okay. So now I'm going to read the Hebrew writing on Lilith. Just one moment. Lilith and Algol. All right. I'll just read a little bit of this. If you Google Algol and Lilith, it comes right up. Okay. So the Hebrews knew Algol as Rosh Hasatan, Satan's head. Also, Lilith. Before this, the ancient Arabs named it Al-Ghul, Al-Ghul, which literally signifies mischief maker, as well as, there's another name, which I won't try to, Rib Ohil, the demon's head. The Chinese called it Teishi, translated as piled up corpses. So all different parts of the earth and different mystical traditions came up with the same thing. This is really when you start to understand that the archetypes, the other thing about astrology, they imprint us, and the archetypal wisdom comes through that impulse that travels in, and each planet has its own impulse, and then sometimes they work together. Astrology is showing us how they're working together in various ways, in various signs. So every single culture came up with Lilith and Algol related. Okay, Algol's sinister qualities were attributed from ancient astronomers by its peculiar appearance. And then it goes into how Algol acts, its behavior. And it was visible even without a telescope. So it's so easy to see. That's why the ancient cultures could just grasp it. Because it's an eclipsing binary. Every 68 hours and 49 minutes, the stars blink for roughly 8 hours as the dimmer star of the pair passes between the brighter star and the Earth. This is why that's pretty intense. Okay, Algol is located in the constellation Taurus. This is the Algol conjunction, and is one of the fixed stars in the sky that were also associated with the Watchers. So if you know some of the kind of like, though the Watchers are ancient, they also really reappeared in the New Age. So it's also associated with the Watchers in other ancient stellar lore. The Greeks named this constellation Perseus, who in mythology slew the Gorgon Medusa at the command of Athena. It depicts the constellation of Perseus depicts a hero holding the severed head of Medusa. The star Algol is Medusa's eye. Oh, wow. This is just, I just got a different hit on that. It's no surprise that Lilith would share a star with Medusa, as their myths are closely paralleled with one another. So that's just some fun looking at this. I was born on this star. So they say that the shadow side of people that are closely related to it often have a head injury, and in the very worst cases, the Sloan head of Medusa. So and sometimes I do have kind of the Medusa hair. Okay, so Uranus is electrical energy. Just one moment. Okay, let's talk about the fire because Mars and Uranus both have this fire energy. In in um in mysticism, fire, there is an inferior fire. We talked about this at the beginning, and a superior fire. So this is just the electrical energy, the electrical currents in the earth are mostly, as the human being that we are right now, connected to the dark aspect of Uranus. And so that's why people predicted that this transit of Uranus would unleash the dark forces. I think it was I think it was World War II it last transited Taurus. I've forgotten, but it was something big. This unleashes some of our darker side as human beings. And remember, all of the unleashing is for our awakening. We live in a very imperfect world. And that's not to give all of the darker side a pass, but that's why this is like a playground for the devil and for the divine, and they work together. So that's why it's so important that this is free will, you create your space. Lilith, and we're going to talk about this. I'm doing a Lilith lecture. Make sure to come to it. There's so much in it that it's crazy. So Lilith also represents in a very deep way of her meaning space. The space we create, and it can be our mental space. So the most important thing right now is create your spiritual alchemical space. Nobody will hand that to you. Nobody. No politician, no right or left politics. The right or left politics at this point is a team sport. And I follow both really closely in the West. And it, I, I've often said I lean to the left and have like some liberal values, but when it's such a team sport, you can't get anything done. That's what has come. That divide has become so great that people kind of have a pick a size. So many people were picking different sizes than they used to be on. But unless we have a place where we can meet and talk, and events like this bring us to our knees. And when we come to our knees, it's so we can talk. It's so we can raise the flag of surrender and say, let's talk, let's negotiate. Now, one side believes that it's non-negotiable with the other side, and the other side believes their politics are non-negotiable. When you're standing in the place of wisdom, you realize that different morals and values come from different orientations. And so let's say the people deeply in religion may always feel this is wrong. and these people may be, no, 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 and we don't want to be told what to do based on your religion. Both are valid. So how do they ever come to a decision? In alchemy and in ascension, whatever you'd like to call it, in the awakening of our body of light and intelligence, we have to understand how to balance the forces. You can't just take the right hand or left hand path, you have to take the center. And that means we have to listen. We have to use our sword of discernment and sometimes cut things away, but if possible, without judgment. As we get smarter and more light, we learn how to do these things, and it becomes kind of fun. And you always pray for the health and happiness and soul growth of everyone involved. So this in this team sport right now, it's so divided. Let me just see if there's anything positive to say. You know, the rise of populism is happening on the right and the left. I want to be clear with that. On on the right, you had the former president, and you have a massive movement that's been building that considers themselves to be patriotic. But on the left, we also have, various members in Congress, and we have presidential candidates that did not make it to the ticket that maybe should have. But the populism is rising on both sides and has been for a long time. Oftentimes, the same values meet because there's a saying that the people's voice is God's voice. And so I guess it depends on, I mean, at the core of it, it's true. The people have to speak the divine, even when they're being misguided. But it's got to be connected to love. And so let's look at, okay, oh my gosh, I can't believe I almost forgot this. Here we go. I have 17 bullet points that were big. I wrote them days ago before everything happened here. So I'm just going to start. There were some really good ones, and then we'll do the advice. I'm going to take a second to look. It looks like there's some people here. It's so good to see you. Please let me know. I like to read it afterwards. And if I don't catch your comments now, it's nice to know where you're tuning in from. When the people who gather here tend to be really deep and pretty aware of things on all levels. And so it's always so great to see you. All right. Mars, Uranus-Algol, invisible realm of forces. Our world is governed by the invisible realm. This is mysticism or esoterica 101. Okay. So what does that mean? We oftentimes refer to the archons because we have deep Gnostic ties, a particular stream of Gnosticism. But the archons would be considered, we often refer to the archons as the interdimensional. In the conspiracies, you'll get the archons as embodiments of people and coming in as, I think they're called the reptilians. And so you get these, I want to say one thing very clearly about conspiracies is that they are so valuable because they harness the energy of the human race. And we always say they harness the feminine energy and the spiritual energy because they can take people who are super sensitive and kind of start to tell them what they want to hear. That's partly true. And then it can become a vortex of power. And the forces caught on to this a long time ago. And so going way, way back, even the early church knew how to do this, even going way back, ancient Egypt. So the interdimensional forces, we have to look at it in a very mature way because it can get taken into places that will make you feel foolish and get angry because you'll see that you were played. You were played by someone who is using your belief to thread you along into something that is absolutely ridiculous and beyond having any truth for the path that we're on. So the invisible realms could be said to be the angelic forces, both their light and dark expression. And so we see both the light and the fallen vying for the attention of humanity. So humanity right now, I don't know where, I feel like I have this we are in, I don't know who said this, a metaphysical eclipse. That came across my screen, but that's what it is. And we talked about that with the total solar eclipse in Aries. So meaning we are the reason it's hard for us to see the full power of these spiritual forces and impulses because we are not in tune with the invisible realms. Now we access the invisible realms through love and intuition. I will use this example as a mother with your child, or as a woman with your husband, or anyone who loves deeply, any partnership that's based on deep, even romantic love, you know. But the mother child thing is very deep. I've had things beyond as a mother. You start to tune into the psychic realms of that person. You can feel them. You don't need a 3D interaction. You already know. That's this realm. So love, my point is that love awakens access to the inner realms. That's why love is much more important than politics. If politics takes you into anger and rage and reaction nonstop, and then even worse into some of the false light conspiracies that are taking, you will be so depleted. I've seen people become so paranoid and suspicious they couldn't even be out in the real world. I've seen this through people I work with and telling me stories, but also I've observed it in videos. Because if you give your energy to that, just like that guy was saying, if you give more than a little to it, especially now that energy, they have your energy, they have some of your wealth, but some of your soul. And so in the dark, let's say the fallen angels or the dark forces or the archons now are running your energy. When you love transcends right or wrong. So like if your child, in a healthy way, obviously you can still have boundaries, but you will love your child. We often talk about whether they're beautiful or not so attractive physically, whether they, are successful or whether or not they fail over and over. The true love of the mother can't really break that tie. Now, in human love, we get all the love of the mother, which is a huge focus here, a huge focus of my work. We're raising that into its true elevated state. So in the lower state, we see what we call the mother wounds and all of this. But love and the love of the mother has a lot to teach us. And it was one of the things I was fortunate to get to experience specifics in this lifetime. And I shared a lot of that in the last video. I shared about my fertility and the whole thing. There's a lot. It kind of was so long. But that's the truth of how this platform started. So love is hugely important. Divine love is that kind of love that is attached to wisdom and truth and power. Divine love. So divine love is not a victim. Divine love is no fool. It could be seen as a fool because divine love will walk out on a limb sometimes when everyone else is saying, why are you doing that? But divine love will do that too. It's not always self-protective. It protects its integrity of link to the cosmic, but it will still do things like die on the cross, or like divine love is intuitively guided and knows what to do. So the invisible realms govern this planet. How do they govern it? Let's talk about the fourth dimension. The fourth dimension, or the lower astral plane, is where we actually go in our dream time. When we dream, we go into that realm. And if you ever get stuck if you're dabbling in dark forces, you can get stuck in that realm in dream time. And I experienced this several years back, but I knew what was happening, and I was given the formula to hold up. And I believe it was a training too, because I got to learn how to hold up and not experience the full extent of it. But dream time, we are complex human beings. We are much more than what exoteric astrology will tell us. Anybody who's hugely connected to dreams knows how real it is. And also you begin to understand in metaphysics and alchemy the different dimensions of the dream. But the fourth dimension is when we go into, it's a couple things: our subjective consciousness, which is our own stuff, where you're battling with so and so and being attacked by so and your fears and phobias are coming to life as entities. But then there's also the collective subconsciousness. And Carl Jung talks a lot about this. So the collective unconsciousness is where The demons work. It's where they work, and they work through culture, politics, religion, education, trends. If you've ever thought, why is this happening? This trend seems so crazy, and that becomes conspiracies, because conspiracies are oftentimes based on the observation of something and not knowing what to do it with it, or how to compartmentalize it, or how to access the higher spiritual energy of it. We're in a time when this is the norm constantly. There's nothing to be afraid of, truthfully, because when you say I am, you're back in alignment with the higher tradition and the angelic forces. That's when they can use you. But we all get taken for a ride sometimes. So let's talk about specifically how the spiritual impulse versus the demonic impulse comes in. This is so connected to this conjunction and that Capricorn full moon. So this is a little information on that. We talked about the lower fire, and we talked about the inferior fire and the superior fire, and that these are just words to paint that picture. But there's also the balanced fire, which is really the Christ force, is the balance of above and below. So the inferior fire works through our suspicion, addiction, blind following, cultural trends that kind of suck us in and make us want to be part of the group and to be afraid of speaking out what we know. There's been studies done about women, and women, believe it or not, it's so crazy. Women are more likely to say the truth on one hand. They're likely to know it from a deep way. The masculine energy is works with reason, which is very powerful and very necessary. The feminine gets that intuitive hit of the mother, but the feminine is also more likely to fear being ostracized if she says something that's not accepted by the patriarchal narrative, or we could say the political narrative. This is why politics has the upper hand with women. They play to that all the time, because you become part of the club or part of the group. And then more and more, because we're so divided and that center realm has been dissolved, more and more, even if you hear people talking about this all the time, even on political shows. I used to feel like, let's say I was on the left, but now I don't even recognize it. They'll say things like that. And many people that were on the left in the US have gone to the right because they feel safer, and they feel like they have a crowd where they can speak up, and they've got like protection. And that's a very real thing when you have a gang or a family or a tribe around you. And so a lot of people that, let's say, they tried to speak up here but they were shut down, they have, or canceled, have no other choice but to either be quiet or to find a place where they can say what they feel they need to say. Now, there can be all kinds of traps and pitfalls in this, but this is truly, it affects women more. And that's why oftentimes you will see the people who kind of veer, let's say maybe into the right, they seem more like aggressive and mean and like, I don't give a heck. I will do whatever and say whatever, because it's true. It does attract people who feel strong like that, and are ready to say, I don't care. It's almost like you have to put that aside in certain things. Now, to take it in reverse, there's a lot of people who have experienced that to the extent, and I've even seen women talking about misogyny, which we know is a very real thing, not the sort of pop culture misogyny, but the deep metaphysical misogyny for the goddess, that have said, I can't be around this anymore. Many people that experience the shadow of the more conservative or right side will go running back into the arms of the left and say, no, this is it. And you often see people who were involved, children of people who got really out of hand in some of the sort of conspiratorial world, will immediately go in the other direction, because this is what we think we have, either right or left. This isn't, in spirituality, that's not the truth. You can always support people. And I there is people do congregate together that have likeness. So sometimes you will notice seeing a lot of people like this that I like more in this direction. But the thing for the feminine is to have courage. This is Lilith, the positive side of Lilith and Mars. So write this down for this transit. Make sure you're being true to yourself, but be smart about it. So I know in my work, there's many times I could have gone this path and been in a very different place. Very. And it was actually sacrificing a lot to know that I wasn't meant to do that and to keep trusting and keep praying. But sometimes we have to make choices like that where we say, man, I'm feeling this, but this isn't quite right. This isn't quite right. And make sure it's not fear, which can be real, but make sure you ask, where do I belong right now? Now, what do we do right now when everything's so divided? So this is the lower forces in that. Let's just, before we move on from this, let's look at the shadow forces and the light forces that activate. Now, the angelic forces really, I would say, are above the lower, are in the higher astral realm of the sun, meaning they don't, the higher angelics, I'm just shown to say this, can't fully incarnate into the lower world because they have to maintain a certain frequency. So that's why sometimes it feels like we're really far away from the divine. Sometimes they can strike us by using the dark forces. Like think if something really bad happens and it happens through the dark and we instantly awaken. And then the light forces are right there, meaning the angelics that are pulling us in the positive direction of soul knowledge and wisdom. And so they're always working together, and yet the higher spiritual influences can't fully bathe themselves in the shadow energies. The astral realm can be full blown dark, and it's brutal, especially if you have some sense of being awake and you're in it. You find yourself in it. You can feel shamed, like, well, how did I get here? And because there comes a point when if what you did took you into that realm. That realm, for at first we think we're always a victim, but there's certain points where your teachers are saying you did that. And as we say, the higher you go in your frequency, the more important your choices become with free will. They want you to learn how to use free will, how to use your free will so that you use it in union with the divine. This is always the path of alchemy. And not everyone's on it, and nor should everyone be on it. The population gets smaller and smaller as we walk up the mountain. There's fewer people that make it to each level. The whole point of any of it is to serve this planet and to bring wisdom in, to be a container of that wisdom. So there is this is one last thing to say. Fire can be associated with the tower, the archetype of in the arcana of the tower. And so you see the wrong use of fire dismantles everything. So in mystical teachings, we would say that when you're building something with the lower fire, whether it's a political movement or even wealth in the world, we often say you can build things, you can look really successful and really happy and have it be built on, you might hear the false light, but this is even more intense than the false light. The false light is the more seductive side of Venus, but you're built on a tower, which is going to fall. Ideally, we're learning how to build our castle with the spiritual impulses of the higher angelics. And that's how we do it. And that's what these spiritual times of chaos that we're in are, to keep us tuned to this wisdom. So I wrote, there's a cosmic moral law in alchemy. There is such thing as idealism and truth in the laws of creation, but that truth rarely matches up with our physical truth. It's buried inside it. We're meant to be humans and be able to play in the realm of what is called actual truth, meaning like what I see is what I see. But there's higher ideals, and that's what the archetypal wisdom is. It's not to deny being human. But in order to make it into those realms with the higher angelics, we have no choice but to understand this. And we have all the time in the universe because we have forever to get there, although there are cycles, but we're in a very accelerated time of growth right now. True religion holds template Oh, of the resurrection of the soul. I wrote this, I love it. It's number 6. True religion holds a template of the resurrection of the soul. So there are templates on this planet. They're human, so they falter over and over, but there's an understanding of those mystics who have gone in. The template is here. It's just how much we are ready to receive from it. But when religion is used as a tool, weaponized as a tool of politicization, it loses everything. It can be held up for moral questioning, but when it's used in the wrong way, it sinks beneath its potential. But the templates are here. We would say here, I have written that Art of the Feminine is a cosmic feminine Christianity. What that means is it's built on the knowledge of the cosmos with the Christos archetypes of ascension and soul awakening. And so it remembers what may have been muted in some of the religions on the planet. That's why we say it's the age of Venus and the goddess epoch. We need physical vehicles that go through the greatest trials and tests and initiations to be able to have vision to see what is this final stage of filling in the divine feminine so that it awakens in everybody. That's what this work is about. We must work through love in order to carry the Christ force, okay? And Mars is passion. Oh, just a reminder, Uranus is the sexual force also. So when we're talking about that lower fire, everything in that realm that manifests, it has different faces and different rays. It's lust and addiction. We call it lust frequency. When everything is pushing something on you, it can disguise itself in pretty pictures. But we talked often here about the serpents of lust and the serpents of wisdom. Learn how to feel when it's the serpents of lust. We often say, I'm going to show something that we work with in Light Body Yoga. There is this space between the heart and the solar plexus, right in through here. And this space, this came early in Light Body Yoga. I was shown how the serpent of lust rises. It's a very particular feeling that excites. And so when you get hit, there's also a mental serpent of lust that makes us focus in way too deeply on something, like it grabs our attention and won't let it away. The serpent of lust also works in the mind. I mean, obviously it works its way up the entire tree. But this right here for the feminine, and this also, I feel it with tech, there's sometimes you get a hit and you know you're meant to stop, or you know you shouldn't say something, or you're inspired to do something, but you feel that like lower impulse. That's the serpents of lust. And they can lure you in and they can attack the lower heart. They work through the lower heart, which I would say is the lower fourth dimension, the lower astral. We want to work with the serpents of wisdom and the highly energized and charged serpents. These are the serpents of divine love. And they can play both sides because they're the integration of the light and the dark, but they always know their home. They always know their mother. They know their mother in the heart and they obey her and work with her. So I wanted to say that in this time where I wrote down, we're moving from karma to redemption. So that's what all of this is about. So what that means is that we used to operate, this has to do with Saturn. Saturn is karma and Capricorn. This is why the Christos teachings are so important. And this is one to remember. Karma puts us on the wheel and it makes sure that it's the old religion, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. You'll hear like the Old Testament religion, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. Sometimes people call it the lunar religion. That is karma. That means everything will be balanced. If I do something wrong, I better know that it's coming back for me, and there's no other way. And we still have that. It's not that that's gone, but this is so that's the age of karma. And there and that's not to I'm not even putting down the Old Testament religion, because the Old Testament religion also holds the key. Within the fall is always the key to the ascension. So you cannot shun this or dismiss it, which is kind of in some ways what happened as we moved into the New Testament. But just one moment. Okay. The new impulse, the new spiritual impulse brought forgiveness. I can't tell you how big forgiveness is, because until you master it and know it intimately, it will not work for you. But once you realize that the Christ that walked the earth, and the impulse of the master Jesus, let's say that spoke forgiveness, and so you can see it in some of the shows that depict Christ as the true forgiver. Forgiveness, we call it an esoteric code, and we've done a lot of um, email, or not emails, videos. That's funny I said that, on forgiveness. That's so funny I said that. So you think of a lot of emails where you're forgiving someone, or where you're having a conversation with someone, which is going back a little ways. So learn how to forgive. Forgive yourself, but you have to. And if you're so polarized that you can't see the other side, think about a marriage. When you're married, and what's the thing that happens? You run up against times when you can't see eye to eye, when there's no other way to go forward except for forgiveness, and listening, and breath, and love. Love can rise up beyond the wound. So think about it. Oh, when you experience it, it's so brilliant that when you love someone, you're like, that's it, I'm over. And you literally allow hate in for a moment, but then something comes in, and like a glacier, like an ice dissolving, it's gone. And you're like, that's a miracle. That's what miracles are. That's what miracles are. It's a shift in your perception. So what should we say last about forgiveness? It's not to be taken advantage of. It's not to see energy, but it is to understand, most likely, if you're trapped where you have an enemy that you can't let go of, you still have more work to do to understand the law of forgiveness, or what we call in this work, which we've done some videos on, the law of surrender. Because if you let your heart be hardened and stay with one group, you'll miss the spiritual forces. They can't work through that unless they're using you to carry out a mission, and you're kind of like you're on that mission and then you're done. They can use human consciousness, where they might bring someone in that could never reach that place, but they'll carry out an act that will put many, many more people on the place of in on the path of forgiveness. This is huge. Okay. Moving from karma to redemption. Our redemption is forgiveness. It's the true message of the Christ teachings. And that's why, let's just take a moment with popular culture right now. That's why some of the rising up against social issues and things like that are misguided. Some of it is real, it's wisdom, but a lot of it's misguided, because it's an obsession with something. And even in religion, and even I'll say, like, sometimes the religious right, back in the day, I remember when I was first aware of how strong it was in judging people. And at that time, that's going back to the early 2000s, I was like, oh my God, that's awful. I could never, ever have anything to do with anyone who's involved in these kinds of ideologies. But then now that's coming into it, that's trying to transmute as well. Some of the far further right evangelical type, and which became a political power, is trying to come into more reason and the true teachings of the Christ. And there's a reason also why there's some things being held up that need to be looked at. That's true. And there's a reason for understanding spiritual law. But if you get caught in something, okay, this is the last thing I'll say. On social media, like if you go on X, you will see so much hate. Obviously, you can also see the truth rising up. And so that's the only reason I tune into it sometimes. There is some true discourse happening, but the casual hate thrown around. When I go into it and see it, and you get used to reading it because you read it, pretty soon one person takes it to this level, somebody takes it to that level, pretty soon it's at that level, and that's acceptable. And everybody's talking that way. People who would have never spoken like that a few years ago, all of a sudden it's their everyday language. That takes the demonic forces in. You open your door and you let them in your soul. So just to understand that that's real. You don't want anything to do with that. Once that kind of language seizes you, you have to take an evaluation and step back. Even in love and war, I would say it's be careful about that. All right. I wrote down, then there's activism and materialism. Are you just being an activist? Activism is also materialism, because sometimes when people lose their spiritual practices, this is why it's so important to have a spiritual practice. If you only take up activism, that's a very materialistic view. That means you're trapping yourself on 3D and you're trapping yourself in like actual truth. There's a place for that, but if you're called to, if you know you're here for the spiritual awakening, you have to realize that activism without wisdom and without true love and vision can be used just as much as any conspiracy can. So activism can feel good. We can feel like we're part of the club, like we talked about, and like we've got people who think as we do, and now we're in the club and it feels good for a while. Then you all of a sudden are like, wait a minute, that doesn't speak for me. How can I do this? So we're trying to figure out how to come together as a group in a different way than we're doing right now, where we honor the individual in the age of Aquarius, where we're not afraid to listen to each other and say, hey, that's a good idea. What's the consensus? How can we get there where it's good for all of us? Obviously, we don't compromise the highest ideals, but those are for another stage of development. We cannot judge before we ourselves have reached that stage. Okay. Okay, let's talk about the horizontal plane and the vertical plane, which is a common thing we tune into, and then I think I'll start to close out. So the horizontal plane represents 3D, and the vertical plane represents birth from the spiritual world into the physical world. And that's why we associate it with the mother. The mother is that bridge. And if you listen to the many accounts that I give in the last video of the Venus mysteries, that's a very real thing. And that is the vertical plane. So when all of this activism on the planet and these political wars are not connected to the vertical plane, there's no assistance. There's not the true assistance from the higher forces. And so the best way to access the vertical is I am. I am balances. I am is truly the balancing God force of the vertical and the horizontal. We work with the solar Venus prayer is the I am in the 7 directions, which is the number of balance, 7. So is 6. There's a lot more we could say. So find your vertical plane. Let's do I am. We'll do a brief I am in the 7 directions to experience it. It's your greatest power. Answer to nothing. Answer to that first, and then answer to figures in the world. Because most things are tainted in some way, which is okay, but let this be your higher guidance. So as the solar Venus prayer, activating the integration of masculine and feminine in our field, really consciously connecting to I am and the spirits that work for these 7 rays, the 7 Elohim, the powers of the Christ force. We say, I am before me. I am behind me. I am at my left. I am at my right. I am above me. I am below me. I am on the throne of my heart unto me. I am, I am, I know I am. I am, I am, I know I am. The most important thing is to honor the sacred in each other. Don't dehumanize people. See people as human. That is rule number one. Even your greatest enemy is human. And I actually think some of that's kind of came to light yesterday between these two candidates in the United States, one calling the other. And they're, I mean, you never know what it takes to make people sort of take a step back. There's probably a lot more we could say about that, but see a person as human first. Even the greatest criminals, there is a human soul. Sometimes possession can happen and then just back away if you don't feel. But most of our enemies are human beings that just have a different point of view. It's the only way forward. To follow the Christic path is the only way forward. And that goes for all sexual orientations, that goes for all races, all religions. Everyone is sacred. We're in a time of these heavy impulses from the lower spiritual force, the fallen forces, and they're wreaking havoc. And they're taking people down the wrong path. And there is a time to speak out, but if you can do it with love, you will move forward to the next stage very happily. You'll be ready because what's coming in the new world is that we're going to not deal with things the way we deal with them now. Only those people who can hold court with someone they are against will be able to move on. That's the next level of human consciousness. And so, okay, political forces, materialism's no substitute for genuine. Okay, so just know that nothing is a substitute for your spiritual practice. I say that. I want to talk a little bit more about the fire. So, the radiation, we speak of the radiation as the solar light of the sun. Now, you can crystallize forces with the lower energies, and those are what we call passing. Those are the forces that are weaker. They might appear stronger, but you want to understand how to build with the light of the sun and the harmonized moon. Use the light of matter. Uranus traveling through Taurus is activating the light in matter. Only the higher substance goes with us into the new world. The new Garden of Eden can only be built with the solar forces. This is our new world. That just means it's the next frequency and next level of matter. We absolutely, that's why we're here, to learn how to do that. That's when the imagination comes into alignment with the heart and the will. And now you know that and there's prayer and there's beauty, and that's what we call the light body artist, creating the new world. And if you need to, I just want to say this, if you need to take your time to take time out from everything else, find your music, find your beautiful space, find your time outside in nature, and let that be part of your world. Make it yourself. Study, the art and mysticism and iconography is all coming back in now. Some of the greatest things that came through in the Renaissance and going way, way back in the early, let's say the early church, the Gnostic church, are coming back in now. Their time has come. And this is the time of playing and being artists, not getting caught up in patriarchy, because that's going to beat itself down if we don't destroy ourselves on this planet. Use art if you're called to that, and wisdom and metaphysics. Okay. Also, I wrote down anything that's focused only on the dark does not hold spiritual power. So if you're in a conspiracy and you're tuning into it and it's only using the dark and you start to build, that's building power from that. That's been used a lot in the past 4 years. Going back the last 8 years, a lot. And we're going to talk about that when we talk about Lilith. So I'm coming to the end of this. I'm going to, the Capricorn full moon, again, it's the second Capricorn full moon. Your Mercury will be conjunct, some important planets for these candidates and squaring them and hitting this point of this conjunction. Let me just see if there's anything else to say about the conjunction. It's a massive explosion. I think we've seen some of it play out, but there's more. Don't be prepared for anything, but keep the positive vision. Take care of your relationships. I told my family going back a few weeks now, I told all my family, even people who know nothing about astrology, that this transit was coming. And I just said, let's all be extra aware of being not letting impulses come in that blow anything up around anything, because that's when we lose things based on the lower energies of these transits. That can destroy relationships, destroy families, it can destroy lives physically. So we want to, okay, so this is what I want to say about divine feminine astrology. This is about learning to use these forces on their positive side. I said this, and I'm going to read the list again. Use them in the positive way. Use Uranus to connect with your brilliance and the powerful electrical energy. Meditate on the sun and the sunrise. Meditate on the Christ, if that's your calling, or the solar Venus force, the chalice. Meditate on you becoming the chalice that holds the divine light. That's the positive aspect of Uranus. The positive aspect of Lilith is creative power, loving the planet and being supercharged by it, but seeing the beauty of it. Knowing the planet is speaking to us right now. We need to have a relationship with the planet, with Mother Earth. That is not a joke. We need to have a heart relationship with her so that we love her and we don't just see her as a resource. That's Lilith. Lilith is also feminine power and understanding how to hold your own. That's the positive Lilith. And to be smart. Lilith is smart. She knows how to use the forces in the right way. She can, once Lilith goes spiritual, she knows what to do. And she's all in. So, and then there's Mars. We talked a lot about Mars. Mars is light body Shakti. Understand the divine light and how it interacts with matter that's awakening. Understand your solar plexus, your power. Understand reason. And the power here I'm being shown for most of us is to learn how to take care of yourself and stay on the path of alchemy. Don't fall off that. That's why you're here. Stay on that path. Don't that is your only path of sovereignty. Don't give your allegiance to another path that's not spiritually awake. Not all the way. Part of yourself, but not all the way. So stay prayerful. Do not react. Give people space. I put stay out of politics and media wars, but that doesn't mean if that's where your work is, then that's fine. But see it from the place we're talking about. Don't let it run you. Don't let politics own you. Like the new tech, that guy who talked about how those algorithms are going to get in your subconscious. This is real. This is the guy who wrote that book, Yuval Noah Harari, who's like one of the huge speakers on tech and AI. He has some amazing videos where he said, look, these algorithms will be running you. They will run you and you will not even know it. This is right from establishment people saying this is true. This is truth. And I see some people on the left wanting to really get involved with that in a good way. There's a lot coming with that. So watch what you give your energy to. Make sure it's you running that. Do not traffic in evil. Don't traffic in evil. Don't run those fallen forces through your system, through your words, your actions, addictions. Watch your dragon force, watch your sexuality, how you're using it. Run the Christic force in your field. This is light body yoga. I just want to say one thing. The entirety of light body yoga, I'll make this one statement right now. I forgot to say it. On my website, I have light body yoga and light body tantra up along with the school we're running. And I'm going to do a special for light body yoga. I want to say this because it just reminded me. All the tools and rituals and meditations and metaphysical correspondences of the deepest symbolism, and that connects to Gnosticism, Hermetic Christianity, mystical Christianity, and alchemy, Kabbalah. All of that is the foundation of light body yoga. And the way we learn things like that is by applying it. And we apply it when you have a ritual you're doing. You're not just thinking about it or reading about it, you're doing it. When you're engaged, and that's what light body yoga was created for. When you do these rituals, when I started out, I'll save these stories for Lilith, but when I started out learning certain symbolism and I knew it was going to take 10, 20 years, I felt so like, oh my God. But then then light body yoga was given it, and I was shown how when you're actively doing something, I forget what it's called, but it comes into you so easy. Our actions and our application. So just so you know, I'm gonna probably send out my newsletter this week, a special for light body yoga, that particular course that goes through the whole body of work in a fun way. Use these things. If you have something that you're already using, use it. If you practice yoga, if you're an artist, if you get out and walk in nature, this will help you to integrate the thing. We don't just want to sit down and stare at screens or be in our head. Understand your energy power. I told the story about what you're giving that $10 a month to and not canceling. Cancel those memberships. Put at the very height of your work to, to make your spiritual practice and do it. There's got to be, let's say, 3 small things that you stick to. I believe in intuition and going which way you're guided, but to balance your masculine, have 3 things that you do every day. Come hell or high water, you do them. Whether it's a meditation, a prayer, a practice, something you watch. There's plenty, all the spiritualities on the planet, find something and do it. That when we give our commitment, that when the higher spiritual forces see that we're committed, this is huge. We can't even, I talked about this last video in the Venus mysteries, we can't make contact with the masters or the higher angelics until we commit. They don't take wishy-washy initiates or would-be initiates. They're not interested. And they use tough love when it comes to that. That's when we get our personal guardian angels that are kind of helping us out. The hierarchy of the angelics, it's like being, I don't know, a Navy SEAL or something. I mean, you have to train at a high level before they put you in that team because there's a lot at risk. And so it's a frequency. It's a frequency thing anyway. So when you start committing, your frequency rises because they can see that you are preparing yourself to be a link in the chain. Anything worth doing, is worth committing to and having a real practice. Be careful of hive mind populism. Interesting. And that goes on the right or the left. Be careful of the hive mind, that you don't get pulled into something where all of a sudden you don't turn to your I am. Yeah, I put no boundaries, deceptive. I put liberalism can also have that no boundaries liberalism. That's not good either. Find deep, steady commitment boundaries. Immerse yourself in the wisdom. Immerse yourself in it. Once you're all in and you're swimming in it, you're swimming in the Akash. You're swimming in the spiritual energy of who you are. It doesn't mean it's going to take a while. We go through those initiations, but you taste it. You will taste for nothing else. Once you taste this wisdom, not even the finest wine can quench your understanding of how valuable it is. So you have to really taste it. That's what this work is. The divine feminine wisdom comes in at a really high frequency. It's one of the central hubs of working with the hierarchy and the angelics. And I don't say that lightly. It's real. And that's what you want to have a taste for. Your immersion in prayer, study, commitment is your wealth. It's your spiritual power. So I'm just going to take a moment and look down. So just know I'm going to be doing astrology video uploads, and they're going to be packed. They won't be this long. I know, I see today we already went an hour and a half. It's not, at least it's not 3.5 hours. The uploads I'll be doing in astrology, and leave me comments in the comment section, because I haven't uploaded videos in a long time, but going forward, I'll be uploading probably 2 a month, shorter 10 to 20 minute videos that I feel I'm going to pack them with whatever I am shown is the highest archetypal coding. So I just want to remind you of that. However, we'll be doing lectures. The next live lecture is Lilith, and it's going to be really good. And I'll send out information on when it's coming really soon, maybe this week. Okay, I'm going to take a peek down. All right. Love the message about art. Yes. Yeah, Lena, nice to see you. Good to Neil. I need some serious astrological wisdom for these transits on my chart. I wonder what the transits are. Lisa, so nice to see you. Yes. Okay. How you use this wisdom for your chart. So Tennille just asked what some advice. Um, Everything we just said is universal advice. Start with that. Start with praying to your higher self inside. And then if you know astrology, look at it and ask to channel the higher wisdom with it. Don't let it be doom and gloom. Let me tell you something. Right now, my sun, my ascendant, my midheaven, my moon, and my Neptune are are on this transit. One of the worst transits of the year. And so it for me, I was born with a lot of challenges in my chart, and it was to make me understand prayer. Because when you have nothing else, when you're like, okay, this is do or die, what do? You go inward. So that's the first thing I recommend. Then I recommend getting to know your chart, you know, in Divine Feminine Astrology, which I'll be talking more about, like get to know it because it holds a lot of information. Beautiful. Thank you. How to transmute the lower fires. Okay. Thank you. This is a great question. Yes. Okay. So the lower fires, this is a good one. So prayer transmutes the lower fires, meditation transmute the lower fires. Ultimately, Capricorn is the devil archetype in the arcana. And the Hebrew letter is Ayin. Ayin. And the esoteric version of Capricorn is perception. We have this Capricorn full moon coming. Ultimately, everything, the fountain of Capricorn, that Capricorn brings spirit into matter. So why would it be the devil that brings spirit into matter? It's that what we merge with, we begin to crystallize. Now, in some teachings, crystallization is the lower aspect of the fire. In Hermeticism, there's some that say crystallization is when you're working with the lower fires and radiation comes from the sun. But there's different language for different things. All of this is the electrical energy. So you want to change your perception so that your sight, we talked about this in some of the past videos, you're seeing things into your sight is your creative imagination. You're creating as you look. But you can only do that spiritually is when you have forgiveness and you understand what you're seeing. You have to choose to see the divine and call everything up into the divine. So, okay, so Lisa was asking about the lower fire. The lower fire is when we're just being run by the lower elemental cravings. A lot of materialism, a lot of money. Sometimes even when we're pursuing our path, like our mission, sometimes we get tested to not be addicted to fame, a platform, numbers. I know in my own work, I had to lay that down at a certain point, and there was a time I was like, yes, am I sure this is right? Because in the material world, you also want to manifest 3D. But when you temper, it's called tempering your desire body, that's when we start to transmute the lower forces. Now, this is huge for Lilith, and I'm glad you brought this in. This is just Lilith is popping in. Lilith is about feminine competition, rivalry, women, especially. Obviously, all of our desire bodies, because we all have a female desire body, but the competition between the feminine is what keeps the planet on lockdown. Meaning, like, this is a time of women awakening and learning how to use their Lilith. So I know a lot of creatives, and I know a lot of you on our creatives, are also running the lower aspect of Venus or Lilith. It's competition, and we view each other as a threat or as competition. We look at who's doing what you can get from someone else, what they may have taken from you. This is a huge thing in the creative world because creatives on the left are actually really competitive because look at Hollywood or the music industry. So we learn to live with that instead of investigating it and seeing where we can transmute that. This is what I'm being shown right now. This is so beautiful. This is so beautiful. This is for the feminine. It's the feminine competition that has led to the greatest use of the dragon current, the sexual force on our planet, because women rule that force. And so when women are victims or when they're caught up in the lower aspect, we run that energy the most. So this is how you transmute in your work. And I've had to learn this. I've been tested on really deep ways that were so painful and so betraying. Those of you who study with me know I talk about my betrayal codes. I came in with pure betrayal, meaning like I got to carry the light, but also in self-betrayal. So this is what you do. Find out your gift. Find out why you're here. Take up that practice immediately. What you are here to do will teach you, because you will learn as you go, but doing what you came to do. Inevitably, you'll meet up with the art and creativity. If you're in that realm, or anything you're creating when you do what you're here to do, will invite competition, fear of not being good enough, fear of failure and thinking maybe you did fail, fear of comparison. That's human, but once you see it and you play that game, let it all go. And tell yourself this: I am here to do this. The divine is in charge. I focus on my work. If anyone comes and betrays me, if it's a power thing where I had to go through this, where you have some conversations about it, have the conversations, but then let it go. Once you've spoken up and you've been in your power, let's say someone really does something that's obnoxious or really unfair, and you speak about it or you speak to them, and it takes a lot of courage to say, look, I need to speak up about how I'm feeling. That means you've got your power. And sometimes your test is to claim power of Lilith. This was what a test I had to have. I was ashamed to speak for myself. My greatest wound was just give it away, let everybody do it. I can carry it. And my teachers were like, oh yeah, you're going to have to do the thing you fear most. You're going to have to speak up for yourself and use your voice. But then after I did that, in some certain places that were I felt most afraid of, the power started to come in. And so ask yourself, am I meant to be in competition and fear? Am I meant to speak up, or am I now done and I'm meant to let it go? Focus is your greatest power. Once you focus, you transmute the lower fire, because focus, remember, is the magnifying glass running the Christ force through it, and it intensifies it. Don't run the lower forces through the magnifying glass. Run the balanced, we'll say the balanced forces, your own, your I am. Put I am through it in your field. And when you're doing a project or pursuing something, find your allies, and you should be your best ally, and the divine should be your absolute ally. And it's nobody else's business. Just keep going. Keep going. Be aware if you misuse something or you're like, that didn't work out so well. Learn from it, check it off, and let it go. This is what, as candidates for initiation and on the path, everything we do is being seen. Meaning, we just keep taking steps more and more towards what's really just our power, so that we're a stabilized vehicle. And so, in forgiveness is huge. Did I say that? Forgive. If you've been doing things all wrong, right now, forgive it. Let it go. That was the miracle of the Christ. I will forgive your sins, and now you're in the kingdom of heaven with me. That is why religion is so popular right now. There's a huge waves of it, because if you follow those teachings for real, we've talked a lot about this, you will be forgiven and you will step into the kingdom. This is the creative kingdom. And this is where you understand your relationship to other people. You learn to navigate and not have to get involved. If somebody isn't right for that time, just let them go. Bless them. In the kingdom of heaven, we want the best for everybody. And if someone does us wrong or slips, we integrate that knowledge and wisdom, and we know that we can never fail in that kingdom, ever. And we also know that this physical lifetime is not the only lifetime. And we also know that we're here to do the best we can do. The hierarchies want us to accomplish what we've come to do, for sure. Like in my work, I'm aware of time all the time because it's so deeply ingrained in me that this has to be completed. And mentioned I was even told by spiritual master that you have to complete what you came to do. And I know that with every fiber of my being, but do it with focus. Never be afraid of losing. As long as you're in that alignment, do it. Do the spiritual tools and have joy in your heart. There, even though that's kind of new age and kind of law of attraction, it's also very real. Be joyful. When you get excited, when you listen to music and you're like, oh my God, I got it. And all of a sudden you feel the energy rise up, use that. When you meet with people you love, you have a good experience, a good night with friends, and you're like, oh my God, use that. More of that, please. More of that. That's when we become sovereign, that we're choosing. When something hits us and blindsides us with an astrological transit, use it. Just use it and get right back on. Get right back on your mission. Okay, I'm going to see if there's any way to close that. That pops. You got to find the joy. That's why people find the joy of being like born again. There's a book, I think it's called Habits, and there's a whole study about when people are born again in religion, their life, scientists can't figure it out, like why it has such an impact. There's spiritual reasons, but there's also be born again every day because when you're born again, you trust, you surrender, and you realize I have a human body. I have a soul. I'm in the world. I'm meant to do something. And you're like, oh my God, you reclaim it. And you get back on and you quit letting the little things that you quit letting them bother you. Your greatest nemesis, let them go. Just look to that. Because in one sense, as spiritual beings, we have to be busy creating. That's why we're all artists. If we let our creating go and we're just living average life, we know it. We're just not fulfilled. Now, some people will have a life that their family and their home is their mission. So just know, but if you've come to accomplish something, and I work with a lot of artists that are, my God, so driven. They know they're going to this level. And that's a good thing. We can claim that too. When we say the divine's in charge, we don't mean that we don't aim high. We aim high, but we do it with humility. And when we have to pull out a little bravado, we do it. We're not ashamed to say, hey, everybody, look at me. Look what I created here. I need you all to look at me because this is really great. That's okay too. So just know that it's okay to shine as you're okay. I'm just going to tuning in from Scotland. So nice to see you, Patricia. Mary, nice to see you. Divine Bit of Celeste, so great to see you from Hawaii. I think you're still in Hawaii. I know you're bi-coastal. Sonia, Trisha, Maria, Dharma, and Jack, so nice to see you. Okay. And Sananda, I am. You got to walk that lonesome valley by yourself. Yeah, you do. And Snejana, oh, it's so nice to see you. Okay, you do. You do. She makes a really good point. Sometimes you got to walk that valley alone when that's what God's giving you. So not to mistake it with this joy and creativity. Trust me, I've had a 7.5-year path where I had to be almost in near isolation, where nothing was going to happen. And another one almost as long. When you're being worked on with the hierarchies, sometimes you have to throw up your hands up in the air and surrender. So when you are walking the valley, the veil of tears, and you've tried everything, give yourself to it. That is such a great point. In these times, there are many people suffering around the world in various wars that have no, they're walking, but keep the divine in your heart. So, all right. I did go much longer this time. That's why the recorded videos are going to be a lot shorter. So nice to see everyone. Art of the Feminine, the website under the trainings has these trainings I'm talking about. If you're on my newsletter, I'm going to send out something for Light Body Yoga this week. if you've never studied with me and you just want to try something, it's a really good one. So that will be in the news, in the email coming out this week. And but check out artofthefeminine.com. And until we meet again, Lilith is coming very, very soon. And she is pure power. Let me just see if there's any final words on these transits. Capricorn full moon, celebrate it, and watch. I can't wait to hear what we see just between now and the next time we meet, because there's a lot happening. And make sure to like the video, subscribe, come back and leave comments. And that being said, I wish you a beautiful transit tomorrow with this powerful conjunction of Mars, Uranus, Algol, and Taurus. You know, if you're having fun transits, you can tell me in the comments, and I'll see if there's anything I can offer in that way. And then just pray for everybody. I pray for everybody. I'm now praying. I was shown. I'm going to share this with you. This was before yesterday. I was shown to start praying for politics, all sides. And I found a new place for that, and it's really powerful. And to humanize people, take the masks off and humanize beings. So prayer, when you pray for others, the angels look down upon you with a lot of love. If you can find it in yourself, our planet needs prayer. So that being said, I'll close out this with Amen, Amen, Amen. Namaste, and I will see you again very soon. Thank you for tuning in today. Have a beautiful week. Trisha, oh, so good to see you. And Patricia at the end. Okay, all right, bye.